Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, hear me today. Love is not just an emotion, it is the very foundation that holds families together, that strengthens communities, that binds nations with hope. Love is the light that keeps darkness from taking root, and without it, every soul begins to stumble. From the very beginning of creation, love was the essence that gave meaning to life. It was love that moved the heart of God to breathe life into dust and call it man. It was love that said it is not good for man to be alone and created woman to walk beside him. It was love that knitted humanity together, not just in blood, not just in family, but in compassion, in understanding, in mercy. Love is the light that shines through the cracks of brokenness, and as long as that light is burning, no amount of darkness can truly overtake it. But hear me today, darkness is always looking for a place to hide. Darkness waits for moments of neglect, for times when forgiveness is withheld, when kindness is ignored, when patience runs thin. And the moment love grows cold, the moment love steps aside, darkness begins to spread. It doesn't come crashing in with thunder and fire. No, it creeps in slowly, like shadows crawling across the floor at sunset. It begins in whispers of doubt, in seeds of resentment, in unspoken bitterness. And before you know it, a heart that was once warm with love has become hardened, cold, and distant. Love is not weak. Love is not fragile. Love is the strongest force that the human heart will ever know. It can heal wounds that medicine cannot touch. It can rebuild bridges that years of division have torn down. It can open doors that anger has slammed shut. Love is the power that keeps darkness in its place, for where there is light, there cannot be shadow. Where there is love, there cannot be hate. Where there is compassion, there cannot be cruelty. Love does not negotiate with darkness. It drives it out, and yet, how often do we forget that the battles we face are not always battles of flesh and blood, but battles of the heart, battles of spirit, battles of love against lovelessness. Some of the deepest wounds people carry are not from physical harm, but from the absence of love. A child who grows up without affection carries scars deeper than the eye can see. A marriage without love becomes a battlefield instead of a safe haven. A community without love becomes a place of fear rather than fellowship. Darkness thrives where love is absent, but love thrives even when the night is long, even when the storm is raging, even when the world says it's impossible. The problem is not that darkness is strong. The problem is that love is often withheld. People choose pride over love, ego over compassion, judgment over mercy. They guard themselves with walls instead of opening their hearts with grace. But walls don't just keep others out, they also keep love out. And once love is locked out, darkness finds its way in. That's why forgiveness is not just a gift for the one who hurt you. It is freedom for the one who carries the weight. That's why kindness is not just a gesture. It is a light in a place where shadows are thick. That's why patience is not just endurance. It is a shield against bitterness taking root. When love shines, darkness has no choice but to retreat. It may try to linger, it may try to whisper, but it cannot dwell in the presence of true love. You can see this in the smallest moments of life. A smile to a stranger can soften the hardest heart. A word of encouragement can lift someone from despair. A simple act of generosity can shift an entire atmosphere. This is not weakness, this is strength. For love is not passive. It is active, it is bold, it is courageous. It takes courage to love when the world tells you to hate. It takes courage to forgive when bitterness feels justified. It takes courage to keep giving when all you've received is rejection. But it is in those courageous acts that the light of love burns brightest. Some of you know what it feels like to live without love. You've walked through seasons where affection was absent, where understanding was scarce, where compassion seemed out of reach. And you know that in those moments the shadows grow long, loneliness settles in, fear grows louder, anger becomes easier. You begin to question your worth, your value, your purpose. That is the work of darkness. It convinces you that you are unworthy of love, that love will never find you, that love will never stay. But the truth is, love is not gone. It is waiting to be rekindled, waiting to be chosen, waiting to be invited back in. Every great movement of healing, every great act of reconciliation, every great story of redemption begins with love, not with power, not with money, not with influence, but with love. Love is the seed that grows into peace. Love is the foundation that builds trust. Love is the river that washes away bitterness, and when you let that love flow, darkness has no room to root itself. It cannot thrive in soil watered by compassion. It cannot grow in hearts illuminated by mercy. It cannot remain where forgiveness reigns. Do not underestimate the power of the smallest flicker of love. A single candle can drive out the blackest night. A single act of kindness can undo years of hurt. A single word of grace can silence the loudest lies of shame. That is the power of love. It multiplies, it grows, it spreads, it transforms. And when it is present, when it is active, when it is alive, there is no shadow that can overtake it. When love departs, bitterness, anger, and division rush in. It is never an empty exchange. The heart cannot remain neutral when love is gone. Something else will always take its place, and if that place is not filled with grace, with compassion, with forgiveness, then it becomes the breeding ground for resentment. Bitterness takes root like a seed planted in soil, and once it begins to grow, it spreads into every corner of life. It twists perception, it poisons relationships, it robs joy. Bitterness does not ask permission. It simply steps into the vacancy love leaves behind and begins to grow. And where bitterness lives, anger soon follows. Anger becomes the voice of the wounded heart. Anger becomes the armor of the rejected soul. Anger lashes out not always because it is strong, but because it is afraid, because it is hurting, because it is empty. Anger is the defense mechanism of a heart that once knew love but has been abandoned by it. And if anger is left unchecked, if it is allowed to simmer, it will turn into rage, it will turn into destruction, it will turn into violence against yourself and against others. Division does not need much to thrive. It does not take years of conflict. Sometimes it only takes one moment where love should have spoken and did not. One moment where forgiveness should have been offered but was withheld. Division begins with a whisper, a subtle pull away from unity, a quiet fracture that grows wider with time. Families fall apart not always because of massive storms, but because love quietly left the house and bitterness quietly took its place. Friendships end not always because of betrayal, but because pride was chosen over reconciliation. Communities collapse not only because of injustice, but because love was not strong enough to hold them together. The absence of love is never a small matter. It is not a minor inconvenience. It is not something we can live without and still thrive. When love departs, the heart begins to die a slow death, not all at once, but piece by piece. Compassion fades first, replaced by suspicion. Kindness disappears next, replaced by cruelty. Trust breaks down, replaced by division. And before long, what was once a heart filled with light becomes a battlefield of shadows. You can see it in the eyes of people who carry bitterness. They smile, but the smile does not reach their soul. They laugh, but the laughter does not heal their wounds. You can see it in relationships where anger has replaced affection. Every conversation becomes an argument, every silence becomes heavy, every moment becomes tense. You can see it in communities where division has stolen unity. Neighbors stop being neighbors, friends stop being friends, brothers and sisters stop being brothers and sisters. The bond that once held them together is broken because love is missing. Love is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Without it, every other emotion is corrupted. Without love, patience becomes mere tolerance that quickly turns into frustration. Without love, generosity becomes obligation that quickly turns into resentment. Without love, truth becomes a weapon instead of a healing balm. Everything outside of love is tainted. Everything outside of love is incomplete. That is why the absence of love opens the door to bitterness, anger, and division. But bitterness does not announce itself with loud noises. It sneaks in through small offenses that go unhealed. It grows when apologies are never given. It spreads when forgiveness is never offered. Anger does not appear as a stranger. It hides in the corners of disappointment, waiting for a chance to explode. Division does not start with a wall. It starts with a crack, a misunderstanding that could have been mended if only love had stayed. And the enemy knows this. The enemy thrives in the absence of love, because where there is no love, there is no unity, and where there is no unity, there is no strength. Where there is no love, there is no healing, and where there is no healing, there is no wholeness. Where there is no love, people turn against one another instead of standing together. That is why the strategy of darkness has always been to remove love. Not to destroy it outright, but to erode it slowly, to weaken it, to distract us from it, until we no longer notice that it has left. And once it has left, bitterness rushes in, anger fills the space, division builds its walls. Suddenly, the conversations that once brought joy now bring pain. The gatherings that once united now divide. The moments that once brought peace now create conflict. All because love departed, and in its place came shadows that were waiting for the opportunity to rule. Think of the times in your own life when love left. Maybe it was a relationship where words of affection stopped being spoken. Maybe it was a family where forgiveness stopped being practiced. Maybe it was a community where compassion stopped being valued. What happened in those places? Did peace stay? Did joy remain? Or did bitterness creep in? Did anger rise up? Did division break what was once whole? You cannot starve the heart of love and expect it to remain healthy. You cannot deprive relationships of love and expect them to remain strong. You cannot withhold love from your community and expect unity to survive. Love is the glue, love is the bridge, love is the anchor. Remove it and everything begins to unravel. Remove it and everything begins to collapse. Remove it and the door is opened wide for darkness to reign. Restoring love is the key to driving out the shadows of evil. Evil does not surrender to fear. It does not yield to hatred. It does not bow to pride, but it crumbles under the weight of genuine love. Love is the one force that darkness cannot resist. Where love rises, shadows have no hiding place. Where love stands tall, division loses its grip. Where love flows freely, bitterness withers and dies. Evil feeds on emptiness, it thrives on brokenness, but love fills the cracks, love heals the wounds, love mends what has been shattered. The enemy's greatest weapon is not always destruction but deception. He whispers that love is weakness, that love is fragile, that love is unnecessary in a hard and cruel world. But that is a lie, because history has shown that love has toppled empires, healed nations, and restored families that seemed beyond repair. Love carries with it a strength that cannot be measured in numbers or wealth or status. Love is not just an emotion. It is a decision, it is a power. It is a force greater than every shadow that tries to consume the human heart. Restoring love does not begin with the world, it begins with the heart. A heart that has been broken can still love again. A heart that has been wounded can still forgive. A heart that has been hardened by disappointment can be softened by compassion. But restoration requires a choice. It requires humility to admit that love has left. It requires courage to open the door again. It requires strength to allow love to heal what pain has built. And once love is restored in the heart, it spreads into the home, into relationships, into communities, until the atmosphere is changed by its presence. You see, evil flourishes in emptiness, but love fills the void. Evil thrives in division, but love builds bridges. Evil seeks to isolate, but love gathers. Evil wants to destroy, but love restores. That is why the key is not to fight darkness with more darkness, not to meet hate with hate, not to battle anger with anger, but to restore love where it has been lost. Because love is not just a response, it is the solution. Love is not just an answer, it is the cure. Restoring love is not easy because it means confronting bitterness. It means dismantling anger. It means breaking down walls of division. It means choosing peace when conflict feels justified. It means offering forgiveness when resentment feels easier. It means extending kindness when cruelty feels deserved. But this is the path of restoration. It is not about what others deserve. It is about what the world needs. And what the world needs more than anything is love restored in its rightful place. When love is restored, families find healing. Parents begin to listen again. Children begin to feel safe again. Marriages begin to breathe again. When love is restored, communities begin to rebuild. Neighbors begin to trust again. Strangers begin to help again. Bridges begin to form again. When love is restored, individuals begin to rise. The broken begin to mend. The weary begin to hope. The forgotten begin to believe again. Restoring love does not just drive out shadows. It brings life where death tried to reign. But restoration takes intentionality. It requires us to water the soil of compassion, to nurture the seed of forgiveness, to protect the growth of kindness. Love must be restored daily, because daily we are tempted by bitterness, daily we are provoked by anger, daily we are pulled toward division. Restoring love is not a one-time act. It is a lifestyle. A continual choice to shine light in places where shadows linger. Look around at the world today and you will see what happens when love is missing. You will see division across nations, hatred between neighbors, brokenness inside homes. You will see the shadows stretching long across the land. But if you look closely, you will also see sparks of love being restored. You will see people forgiving when they had every reason to hate. You will see communities uniting when division tried to tear them apart. You will see kindness springing up in unexpected places. These are the signs that love, once lost, can be found again. Evil cannot stand against restored love. It may try to disguise itself, it may try to linger, but when love returns, evil is exposed. When love is active, darkness has no authority. When love is alive, fear loses its grip. When love is restored, chains of hatred are broken, walls of separation come down, and the atmosphere begins to shift. That is why restoring love is not just important, it is urgent, because the longer love remains absent, the stronger the shadows grow. But the moment love is rekindled, the shadows scatter. Restoring love requires vulnerability. It means opening wounds that were never healed. It means risking rejection. It means trusting again after betrayal. But vulnerability is the soil in which restored love grows. You cannot rebuild without first clearing the rubble. You cannot heal without first acknowledging the hurt. You cannot restore love without first admitting that it left. And in that humility, in that honesty, in that courage, restoration begins. There is no darkness too thick for love to penetrate. There is no bitterness too deep for love to uproot. There is no anger too fierce for love to calm. There is no division too wide for love to bridge. Restoring love is not limited by what has been lost. It is fueled by what can still be found. As long as there is breath, there is room for restoration. As long as there is life, there is space for love to return. As long as there is a will to choose love again, the shadows of evil cannot remain.